Hi, I'm Denise Griffitts, and this is your partner in Success Radio. Most high achieving entrepreneurs look successful on the outside, but quietly white knuckle pressure on the inside. And that's because the world is moving faster than most leaders are built to handle. Today's guest, Angus Nelson, helps executive build leadership stability. Write that down leadership stability. And that's the capacity to maintain clear judgment, strategic timing, and calm execution under sustained pressure. And our sponsor today is Damon Limby and Learn It Press. Damon is not only a guest on the show, but he's also one of our sponsors. And he is a leader who helps experts transform their knowledge into books that strengthen credibility, elevate their message, and create new opportunities. Learn It Press, and that's learnitpress.com, exists for leaders who have something meaningful to say and want to say it well. Damon helps leaders turn their expertise into books that build trust, authority, and visibility. So if you're ready to shape your message into something lasting, I can do it. LearnItPress.com can help. Now to my guest. Angus Nelson is the founder of Evolve Leadership, and he's the author of Neuro Resilient Leader, the internal operating system for leading at the speed of change. I had to actually read that twice. You know why? Because every time I see neuro, I think neurodivergent, or I don't think neuro-resilient. So that's what
Mm-mm.
makes this book so fascinating. And he's showing leaders how to strengthen their internal operating system so they can lead with more clarity and confidence. And I have that book in front of me now. His work with entrepreneurs and executives centers on helping them recalibrate under pressure, reduce overwhelm, and make better decisions when the stakes are high. Angus, welcome to your Partner in Success Radio, and thank you for sharing your book with me.
Well, thanks, Denise. I'm so happy to be here and dive into all of this with you.
I'm excited by it. Your book landed here. You had to send it to me in kind of a hurry because I slotted you into an empty space that had come empty. I was like, please, would you come up? And when I got the book, I have read it 2.5 to 3 times. It's a fascinating book. And like I told you in the green room, my favorite chapter so far is chapter 13. Turn your
Mm-mm.
wounds into weapons, and we'll cover that. But thank you for being here. And before we dive in, I would love to ask how you show up in the world and have you introduce yourself to us.
Well, I live in Lisbon, Portugal. I'm married. I have 3 children and a delightful golden retriever. I'm an executive coach and advisor. I work with founders as well as executives to help them unlock themselves to be able to operate at a much higher function. And that's where this book kind of came about. I started an innovation association years ago, and I was working with Fortune 500 brands, over 75 brands, names you've heard of, everything from BMW to Coca-Cola to Wells Fargo, Disney, Ford Motor Companies, all these executives, or over 200 executives that I worked with, are senior level, operating under extreme amount of pressure. And I started to observe patterns in how they led and the challenges they were experiencing. And that took me into this world of speaking into, the things they were going through. And one day, one of the clients said, "Angus, you'd make a great coach." I was like, "Thank you, I think." And I didn't know what that meant. And I started doing some research. And before long, I realized, oh my gosh, this is what I was born to do. And that's how I got into this space. And this book is a product of the last decade of working with leaders, watching how they struggle and what they're challenged by, and then recognizing that right now in this era of AI and market volatility and global complexity, it's all accelerating faster than most people can adapt. But leaders are trying to outwork that velocity by pushing harder, that hustle culture and all the things that traditionally have worked, but now are no longer, because you cannot outwork velocity. And every single business problem at any level now, whether it's analysis paralysis or stalled innovation or hemorrhaging talent, all of these are actually an internal operating system problem. And the single greatest, I believe, the most expensive, perhaps, bottleneck of any business and any strategy is really a dysregulated nervous system. And that is a product of our our brain, that amygdala, the most primal part of our brain, operating from fight, flight, and freeze. And it's interfering with daily momentum, with our challenges. And it treats, whether it's a Slack message, an email, a request from a boss, a colleague, confrontation, all of it appears and feels like a life-threatening emergency when it's not. And it's because everybody's operating in this high reactive state, because the last 6 years has been relentless,
It's not
relentless at the beat of
healthy.
change, right?
Yeah, it's not healthy at all. And I have to tell you this weekend, because it's a long weekend here in America, it's Memorial Day, I deliberately put my brain into idle. It wasn't
Mhm,
easy, but I had to. I needed some downtime. And today I'm almost feeling human again.
mhm. Yeah.
And I'm not joking. I mean, you get so stressed and there's so much to do, and there's you open your email, you do this, you do that, and all of a sudden you're reacting to what other people want or need from you instead of saying, "I can do this. I've got a plan.
Mhm,
The day is mine. I will take care of it." But we're so busy reacting that our brain just shuts down.
mhm. And if you think about it from an operation standpoint, if you've got leadership, whether that's, an entrepreneur leading a team, of just a handful, all the way up to a leader who's maybe leading, hundreds, if not thousands, whatever leadership is responding to, reacting to, and behaving like, there's a trickle down, because that energy is contagion. And if you have a dysregulated leader, you oftentimes have a dysregulated team. And that's the thing that's costing people, costing companies, and the decisions that are happening in real time. And so if people can't even interact, on a global spectrum, in a political spectrum, or a social media spectrum, with discourse, with a level of, you know, maturity, with a level of exchange
Humanity.
and humanity, like, if you follow the line of that continuum, you start to realize we are creating our own chaos on a daily basis, because we're not addressing the core operating system that keeps us at a place of regulation, of peace, of clarity. And as the book talks about in the C3 protocol, that whole premise of clarity and composure being matched in between, the area of capacity. And that capacity is the level that we're wrestling with. And if you don't have clarity of who you are, what you're here to do, uh, an element of identity, a level of knowing who you are, and you can say, yes, emotional intelligence. You can say that it's having that self awareness. That's a piece of it. But if you peel back the leaders and you look, or pull back the layers and you look in deeper, you'll start to see there's an element of identity. There's an emotional quotient. There's a psychological, and there's a neurological. And these are the depths that nobody's speaking to, and yet it's the one thing that's conflicting with every system on the face of the planet.
And that does make a lot of sense. And I was going to ask you, and I think you've already explained it, but for anybody tuning in just right now, what does neuro resilient leadership mean in plain language?
So if you think of it from the neuro side, that's neurological. So that's that element of the emotional, the psychological, and the identity. That's the full composure, or excuse me, full compass of what actually creates our neurological systems. And I'm saying that without going into the science and the synapse and prefrontal cortex, amygdala. Like, we can get all academic, but that's not what we're here to do. The thing is, people need to understand what's actually happening. So that's the first point. The neuro side of this is the things that are operating internally. Number two is this word resilience. So most people think resilient is grit and grind, and you just push through to get to the other side. But in all actuality, resilience is better defined as, say, shock absorbers. When you have a suspension system to your vehicle and it's operating on a rough road, the road is interpreting to the system what's happening. It's like, hey, this is a bump up, this is a bump down. And the system responds accordingly, and it turns all of that information into a smooth ride. In the same way, resilience is be able to take the pressure and turn it into power. And so when you look at neuro-resilience, it's an internal operating system that can carry the weight and load and still maintain composure and clarity and capacity. This is the leader that's necessary in this day and age and for the future, because none of this is slowing down. This is an absolute new normal, and that new normal changes almost on the daily. And
It does.
will
Yeah,
you be
that's a
agile,
COVID
right?
term, yeah. Can you pivot and new normal? I learned to hate those words. I really
Right.
did. I got so sick of them. But now I'm feeling I'm a little bit less hostile about them because things have calmed down. But yeah, you're right. It is a new normal. We're being bombarded everywhere, even in the grocery store. It's like, buy this,
Mhm.
do this. We're being bombarded. So guess my question to you, I guess, is how do we calm ourselves down? How do we train ourselves to just say, hey, hold up, stop talking to me, stop selling me, just everybody calm down.
If you look at ourselves as actually in control, you start to take back your own personal power, then you don't have to dictate who you are and how you show up by everything outside of you.
Oh,
So, one of the chapters I talk about is people pleasing, as an example. I'm doing things for, and then fill in the blank, to make my boss happy, to make my spouse happy, to make my kids happy, to be perceived in a certain light, to be seen as smart or to seen as friendly or to what have you. All of these things are us functioning from an external state. That's one example. The second example might be the fact that marketing is done from a scarcity state, all marketing. So anytime you're seeing advertisement, it's making you feel less than because you don't have said watch, said dress, said makeup, said weight, say, house, car, etc. On top of that, we have media. Media is built for agitation because, again, it appeals to that scarcity state. It's the most primal part of our brain, the fight, flight, freeze, as I stated before. And so all media is positioned from a place of putting yourself in a state where your brain has to find solution. That's how they keep you watching news channels, talk radio, etc. It's all built off of agitation. So if you look at those external pieces, just the examples I gave you, you are being strung out and out of control because you're letting everything outside you dictate whatever is happening internal. I was out and about this weekend and I saw two girls who supposedly were friends and they were traveling together on a trip here in Portugal. And one of them got upset about something and the other one said something kind of off the cuff. And this other girl lit into her and threw her body into this other girl who is supposedly her friend and her travel partner on this said vacation. What kind of activity is going on in that person for them to think that that is okay? This is a full grown ass adult.
yeah. We're
And
seeing an
that
awful lot of that. Yeah,
exactly.
awful lot.
And so
It's
if
almost
you,
like, honestly, Angus, it's almost like a nature documentary.
yeah,
These people are not behaving as humans.
yeah. And if you look at that, then again, follow the line of continuum, and we see people reacting in these kinds of ways. Maybe not physically, but emotionally. Sarcasm. Maybe they withheld. Maybe they shut down. Maybe this shows up in relationships. Maybe this shows up, in a business deal. Like across the board, people are less in control of themselves than probably perhaps ever before. And it's not because they are ignorant or because they are, you know, immature, although, there can be layers of all that stuff. It is more so the fact that they are not conscious of their subconscious. And my book talks about how our bodies and our brains are like these supercomputers, and they are wired to take in data and build an operating system around it. And your subconscious is designed to attract or create the experiences, relationships, and opportunities that reflect your internal data. And so if you ever say dating the same person over and over again, suddenly they have a different face, but it's the same experience. The one common denominator is you. If you are working for a certain boss, you keep working under the same kinds of bosses. And you're like, how did I get here? The same kind of interactions. How did I get here? It's nothing to do with the people that you're interacting with, but everything to do with the fact that you are positioning yourself subconsciously on some energetic level to be treated in the way that you feel you deserve to be treated. It's deeply psychological. So if we reverse engineer this, we recognize that all the data we're putting in are built on all the media we just talked about, all the daily inputs from everything external of our relationships and the media talked about. In addition, is the stories we tell ourselves based on whether it be childhood experiences, whether it be trauma, whether it be things we've done to others or things that have been done to us and we carry guilt or shame. We build these stories and now we define for ourselves what we deserve, what we're worth, do we have what it takes? And those stories start to drive the data. And that is what's producing our results and our outcomes.
I'm so glad you brought up subconscious. I talk to mine a lot because I am
Mhm,
fully aware that it's the repository of every thought I've ever had,
mhm,
good, bad, or ugly.
yeah,
And well, I'll tell you what I do when I don't sleep well. I never have been much of a sleeper. I'm not insomniac. I just don't like to sleep. My mother used to say when I was very small that I wouldn't go to sleep because it cut into my reading time. She wasn't wrong.
mhm,
But before I know I'm about to finally fall asleep, I can tell because, I'll be reading and I've got my iPad in front of me. And all of a sudden I bop my nose with this heavy iPad. Oh, going to sleep.
yeah,
So I will literally turn off the light. I will look up at the ceiling fan and out loud, I will say my prayers because somebody's listening. We're not alone,
mhm,
I don't think.
mhm,
Could be the spiders in the fan. I don't know, but somebody's listening. And then I will have a long conversation with my subconscious, looking over the day. I've got something that I can't quite figure out. Can you give me an answer? I have a long conversation. And then I fall asleep. And Angus, I'm telling you, excuse me, 3:18 in the morning. Doesn't matter if I went to sleep at 1:30 in the morning. 3:18, I've got the answer because it's there.
mhm, yep,
It's you just have to learn how to make it accessible.
mhm. And this is the power that's inside of us. So, what if you reframe and reshape the stories that are in your life? And you were talking about, chapter 13 being, one of your favorite chapters where it talks about turn your wounds into weapons. One of the stories I tell in there was a story of when I started this innovation association years ago, I referred to when we opened. I thought for so long that I was able to be a part of that business because my co-founder picked me and I got lucky. And for so long, that was my stories. I just got lucky. And as I was writing this book last year, I was doing some editing on this book and this epiphany hit me and the story changed because in that moment, my co-founder needed a people person. I needed an opportunity to bring my impact into the world with my gifts, talents, and skills. And it's as if the universe brought us together in this moment to be able to build something magical. And I found myself at my laptop weeping. And I felt such a release to realize when you say you're just lucky, you're attaching to that, I don't deserve, I'm not worthy, I don't have what it takes. And when I reshaped that story, I felt something internally shift. In the same way, our whole backstory is built off of different experiences that could be negative, some could be positive. I tell a story in the book about where I could have won um, governor of Key Club when I was in high school, and I didn't know I was supposed to be at a meeting, and I didn't show up, and I ended up not getting the gig and feeling so broken and distraught. That story was you never finish. You can't get it across the finish line. When I changed the stories, like, no, that wasn't a place for me time and time again throughout our lives, whether it be trauma, whether it be, things that, are shameful or guilt ridden, you have to see it from the fact that it has been tuition. It is the price you've paid to become someone special, unique, and that is you. That these things have given you compassion, empathy. They've given you the weapons to become a better human when you see them through the right lens. Now you stop listening to some of the media. You stop listening to the news jacking of your brain. You stop, listening to music or movies that might be violent or critical or overly sexual or whatever that drive your impulses. And suddenly you start taking ownership of the inputs into your supercomputer, and your operating system start to become upgraded. You're writing a new code, and this new operating system is operating at a new frequency, a higher level, a higher echelon. And suddenly your subconscious goes to attract a higher caliber of relationships, opportunities, and experiences. Things you didn't expect show up on your lap. Things you didn't expect to unfold. And suddenly the level of certainty and confidence that you've been looking for all your life are not based on how you are right now, but rather your track record of knowing you can figure things out, knowing that you have this flexibility, this agility to step into and to become and to be something far more magnificent than you've ever experienced before in your life.
Absolutely. And on chapter 13, and I wrote this down the other day, actually, it says, rock bottom became my most excellent foundation. And I wrote that in a notebook. And my observation was, it's your bedrock now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's where you start, unless you're planning on drilling.
Yeah.
You've already hit, don't drill.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Right.
if you got there, so, okay, now you're on solid ground, go up.
Yeah. Yeah. And this level of responsibility, radical responsibility for who you are and how you show up, suddenly takes back your own personal power, your own sovereignty, your own agency. And later in the book, I talk about what I call the nothingness. That's the person who has nothing to gain, nothing to prove, and nothing to lose. It's the most powerful person in any room. And it's like strategic detachment, not detachment from you become some kind of, I don't know, you're psychotic, where you don't care about anyone. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is
Sociopaths.
you're a sociopath. That's a better
Yep.
word. You're not a sociopath. What you are is you're not conditioned by other people's responses or the outcomes. When you are in that state, you become free. And when people get around you, they feel safe. The person who operates in that nothingness is actually in a state of where other people, even in leadership, start to admire your ability to just be. That's true leadership stability. The timing that you're waiting for isn't so conditional. The expectation of it has to look like a certain outcome doesn't have to be so important. You're not so attached to a destination as much as you are a direction. And in this day and age, how important is that? Because the thing that you think it's supposed to look like, there's so many unknown variables between here and there in whatever time frame you want to put it, that you are unlikely to arrive at whatever destination you think it is. It's an unrealistic expectation
Well,
versus
you would also freeze yourself, because now you've got this giant list that is
Mhm.
completely undoable,
Yep. Yep.
and that
Versus
just
a
makes
direction.
everything worse. Exactly.
And now you're
I
going to
just wrote
iterate
that
along
down.
the way. Mhm.
Destination, not okay, keep going.
Yeah, it's direction, not destination. And this is, again, we have so like people right now. I talked to this company with a large car manufacturer, and they were saying, "Hey, this is our 2030 plan." And I was like, "How accurate do you think that is? To be able to think that what that plan is going to look like in 4 years?" I said, "You'd be better off to set a 3-month plan and be able to iterate for the next 3 months, and then just say, this is the direction we're headed, hoping that we're going to be in some kind of arena by 2030. versus saying by 2030, this is what's going to be. Because you cannot forecast that at the speed and velocity we are currently at. And so it's unrealistic for some of the leadership to be able to assert what that destination must be. That's not vigilance. That's not, you know, found logic. That's guessing. And you're setting everyone up for failure. And so what happens is then people try to force an agenda. They're more attached to the destination than they are to the direction. They are in a state where everyone must behave and to do at a certain level or certain cadence. And so last week I was in Ireland and I was speaking and I was challenging this group of IT professionals. And one of them spoke after me and he referred back to one of the things I said. And he said, Angus challenged me and I cannot get this out of my head. He said, is it possible that the speed I'm running my team at is actually becoming detrimental? And I was
I'm
like,
going to jump in and say,
amen.
yeah.
Right? Right? And I was like, amen. Because again, we're so focused on whatever the destination is that we've lost the forest for the trees.
And you've lost creativity and passion and curiosity.
100%. 100%. And so now you have a team that's operation out of performance. They're performing for something to make you happy, to hit some numbers, to whatever. But they're no longer in the place of producing something that's profitable. They're just showing up and checking a box. And these are some of the critical components around human dynamics that are so critical in this moment in time. And as much as the technology is serving us in amazing and beautiful ways, if we forget about the humanity, then that becomes the liability in our leadership. Humanity is the competitive advantage. In this AI-driven world, we need a different level of intelligence. It isn't just the technology intelligence, it's a human intelligence. And that does not happen without regulated leaders.
Let's talk about regulation because you talk about that a lot in the book. And another favorite chapter, and we'll get to it, I think, is 16, write your permission slip. I've got sticky notes
Yeah.
all over this one.
Come on.
I do. Your book
Yeah.
is getting fat.
Yeah, I love it. So the first piece I would say in regulation is it's not woo. It's not, overly spiritual. It's actually very normal.
Isn't it more of you have to be aware?
Yeah.
I would
You're
call it
paying attention, right?
awareness, right.
Mhm.
Are you trying hard?
And related to that is, what are the different operations that get your system into that state? Meaning for some people that might be just hucking off your shoes and putting your toes in the grass for a little bit,
I do that. I
right?
do that a lot.
It's so good for you. It's called grounding. For some people, it's, being in an environment
Mhm.
where, you're by the seaside or you're in the country, you're in the mountains. Something about that environment sets you into a certain state. But then on top of that, there are physical pieces where there's elements of this word embodiment, where you're actually taking information and making it a part of who you are, whether that be through meditation or visualization or tapping. EFT tapping is a really powerful exercise.
Mhm.
And then there's energetic exercises where it can be just as easy as going to the gym, to the sauna, to cold plunge, to breathing exercises. Areas where we're using energy on our behalf. The law of thermodynamics says that energy cannot be created and it cannot be destroyed. It can only be moved. And our
Mhm.
bodies are energy. And so we're carrying energy when our muscles get into knots and we have to go see a masseuse or a chiropractor because things are out of sorts. That's the energy you carry in your jaw because there's 3 times as many cracked teeth being reported since COVID in the United States by the American Dental Association.
I read that over the weekend and I was not shocked.
Yep. People are grinding and clenching their teeth. I was just a guy that I was one of my clients just mentioned that his molar just cracked. I have a tooth missing right now that will be replaced here in just a month or two because of the same thing. And this is what has brought me brought this to my own awareness, is like all these different signals are telling us that things are not okay. And so one of the exercises I talk about in the middle of the book, I have this little manifesto where I talk about the 10-minute leaders, where what if you just spent 10 minutes a day feeding yourself a new line of information, this new data input, whether that be through one of these embodiment exercises, whether it be affirmations, whether it be meditation, visualization, or what have you, but being in an intentional form of upgrading your operating system to a 10.0 version of yourselves. And so I say what if I could get 10 million leaders to give 10 minutes of the day to become a 10.0 version of themselves? What a difference in this world that could make. Because that's all it takes. Just 10 minutes a day, and you can reset the energy in your world. You can reset the calibration of your subconscious just by being intentional. And
You know
yet,
what I
see
do
change.
sometimes? Do you know what a vibration plate is?
Mm-mm.
Oh, you need to look into those. I've got 2 of them, and I love them, but I don't always have time to go out. I do have to go out and walk the dog, obviously, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't always have a lot of time to go outside and play underneath the pecan
Right.
trees. Plus, I live in the deep South. We're now in the mud season. Next month is hurricane season, and it's humid. I don't like
Mm-hmm.
humid. I don't like it
Yep.
none. So I
Mm-hmm.
tend to kind of, cloister myself in the house with the air conditioning so I don't wanna kill people.
Yep.
It's really
Yep.
difficult. But I have these vibration plates, and you can sit on them, you can jump, but they will literally recalibrate just about everything you've got going on in your body. You can calm
Mm-hmm.
down, you start thinking better. If you've got a headache, it helps you get rid of that. I use it to recalibrate. 15 minutes on one of those, and I'm like, "Woohoo," and off I
Mm-hmm.
go again.
Love it. I love it. And the other part that you mentioned was, chapter 16. And I think that's an important part of this, is because in order for someone to maintain sovereignty, to step into their personal power, to finally give themselves their 10 minutes a day, to get into the gym or to do any of these things, there's 2 pieces in here. One is the gap between your knowledge and your doing. We all know there's things we can do to be healthy, things we can do to lose weight or to gain muscle or to have flexibility. But those that actually go to the gym or actually do stretches or actually watch their dietary intake, that's a very different equation. In the same way, we are oftentimes waiting for someone else to give us permission to step into being a greater self, to operating with a different level of authority or audacity. I opened the book with a story about moving my family to Portugal and what it took for us to go through all of that, and the level of unknown and fear and I'm going to say that word again, audacity we had to, have to be able to do that for our family. And there are, in one Facebook group I'm a part of, I think there's like 50 or 60,000 people in that group. And yet only about 8,000 of those people have actually made the move. And for others, they have this thing in their head that, wow, wouldn't that be cool if? Wouldn't that be great if? And I'm just using that Portugal as one example. It might be going for a different role. It might be leaving your company to go get a job somewhere else. It might be finally deciding to ask that person out on a date. Any one of these things is something that people will give themselves some excuse as to why they can't get there. And as I stated before, do I deserve? Am I worthy? Do I have what it takes? And we'll have some kind of record player in our head that says we can't get there. But we will qualify it with, but if this were to happen, then maybe I could. And that is the permission slip. We're waiting for someone outside ourselves to say we can, we should, we will. And the truth is, and this is what we talked about in chapter 16 that you brought up, is that the only one The only permission that you need is your own. You're holding your own keys to whatever promise, whatever uh, goal, whatever life you want to create starts by a choice, starts by a decision that only you can make. And until you give yourself permission to evolve, to operate at this different level of audacity or energy or frequency or responsibility, will only happen when you give yourself your own damn permission slip.
And we procrastinate about just about everything. And you said something just now, can't. People say, well, they just can't. I don't use that word. I think it's a bad word. I will
Mm-hmm.
say I won't because I'm pig-headed and I
Mm-hmm.
just won't do it.
Yeah,
I never say I can't. And, like, I
100%.
don't swim. You know why? Because 'Cause I'll drown. But you're never gonna hear me say I can't swim. I just don't
Mm-hmm.
swim. I won't swim.
Mm-hmm.
But can't is
Yeah.
a bad word. If you can erase that out of your
Mm-hmm.
consciousness and your
Yeah.
vocabulary, you're ahead of the game.
Yeah. And do you know, I love the fact that you point out we're the only species on the face of the planet that has the ability to imagine something, talk about it, and then create it.
Exactly. I mean, look at some of the huge things that have happened in this world. We're talking about Nikola Tesla. He imagined everything.
Mhm.
Fascinating story. Some of the great artists, that was all imagination. Some of the great buildings that exist in the world, it started with imagination.
Yeah. Yeah. And so in that same context is what we imagine, what we call it your intuition, call it your spirit, call it your soul, that
All of the above.
element of you, right? All of the above, that element of you sees something in you. Nobody has to tell you that. You see something in you, and you have to give that gift permission to become. And so, any conversation I start with somebody, I talk about this in the book. I call it the Spice Girl principle. I ask them, tell me what you want, what you really, really want. And most people will give you a list of all the things they don't want first because they're afraid to actually say out loud the thing that their soul, their spirit, their, all the above is actually telling them that they can do. Because the truth is, if you can imagine it, it's only because it's possible. And you were created to be a creator, not a spectator. You were created to initiate, not just react. You were created to transform, not merely exist. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us different from every other species on the face of the planet. And somehow, some way, we have forgotten. We don't embrace the fact that we are remarkable, that we are amazing, that we are great. We won't give ourselves the ability to be light and love into the world. We won't allow ourselves to bring liberty and freedom to others just through our own kindness, presence, focus. Like we have the ability to do amazing things with the environment that is around us. And yet we get so distracted because we're operating on such a smaller state. And what
I
if you gave yourself permission to step into the greater?
Oh, I agree with you, and like I say, I go back to my subconscious all the time, and I will rewrite stories.
Hmm.
You have to. Things that you
Yeah.
heard as a child that or a young teenager, they stick with you, and it's like,
Yeah.
does I will ask myself quite literally, "Does this serve me?" Well, the answer is not just no, it's a hell no.
Yep.
So I go back and rewrite it. I just pave over that idiotic path and replace it with something different, and my subconscious accepts that. It's like,
Hmm.
"Okay, Denise, this is what you want. You're on. Let's do it."
Yeah. Yeah. And when you take that level of responsibility, that level of ownership, then suddenly, as I stated before, there's a magnetism to someone who operates at that level, at that frequency. When someone has a clarity of vision, people want to be behind it. When someone has a clear vision, people want to walk that journey with you. When you have that clear vision, then you have employees that want to come work for your company. You no longer are wrestling to find quality talent. A-level talent comes up for vision. They want to be a part of that journey and that story. When you are in a place that you are not congruent with who you are, when you are not operating in what's possible for you, then you create friction and static just in your own life, and that is contagious to those around you. Whereas when you're operating at this higher level, suddenly you're in a place where, you're replacing hustle with regulation, and it's not about productivity, it's more like capacity. When you step into this realm, there's cognitive clarity, there's that nervous system stability, there's better regulation, there's more precision to the things that you do, the way that you show up. Suddenly your business can scale. Finally, you can make decisions that feel right and have the right energy behind them. You're operating from where you're headed, not what you're trying to avoid. You're moving towards this place of overflow, source, and supply, understanding that you have viability to whatever it is that you put your hand to. That's when your identity starts to match up with the alignment of the direction you're headed. And now things can operate cleanly. Decisions can be done more easily, more frequently, with more speed. And the people around you will be more aligned to come with you. People don't realize that this is an actual business context. There is costs to not addressing these areas of your leadership. And those costs are massive. We're talking multi-millions, if not billions, because people are not regulated. And it will become even more expensive as time goes on, as things continue to change and transform, so must we.
Absolutely. And that's going to lead me directly over to chapter 29. And I just had a thought and it went away because I was so busy listening to you, but it'll come back. It was important, so it'll come back.
Mm-hmm.
But that is titled Mastery Begins in Your Body. And I'm going to kind of reference what I said about procrastination. It's
Mm-hmm.
just too easy for us to procrastinate. Oh, I'll do that tomorrow. Oh, I've got a headache. I don't want to do it. And we get whiny and we don't go do. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. There is this element of your knower, we'll just call it. That inner thing inside you that just knows. When you're around somebody who is kind of staticky, it's kind of wonky, and you get a little
Yeah, I call
discomfortable,
that
a little
instinct.
discomfort,
I
right?
pay attention to my instincts a lot.
Right? So
If I
that's your
can tell if
intuition,
somebody's should not be anywhere near me and I get away from them.
right? So in that same way, we're also giving off static if we're
I
not
know, or
aligned,
some
right?
people call that aura. I mean,
Mhm,
I've seen this before, and I know you have too. I'll be in a grocery store, just all by myself. I'm an introvert, so when I go out, I'm
mhm,
trying to hide myself. I don't
yeah,
really wanna visit and chat and say, "How's your mom?" and them. It's a Southern thing. And I'm out there with
mhm,
my hair in a ponytail stuck out the back of my black cap, and I've got my big Ray-Bans on, and my resting bitch face, which doesn't work, apparently.
mhm,
And I have had this happen so many times that I just take it for granted now. I will literally tell me if you've had this happen. I'll be, pushing my little buggy in the grocery store. I've got a list because I know I wanna get in, I wanna get out, and I'll see somebody, I don't know, many feet ahead of me, stop and turn around and look for me. I don't know who they are. It happens all the time.
mhm,
There's something
mhm,
that I'm projecting that they're going, "Hey,
yep,
who are you?"
yep,
It
and
happens a lot. If you're paying
this
attention, y'all pay attention to who's stopping and turning around and looking right at you. There's a reason for that.
yep, and, in the same way, I'm not gonna go into all the different layers, but you attract different people with your energy, and you
Mhm.
repel different people with your energy,
That's what I was actually trying to
right?
say. So thank you
Yeah,
for unraveling it for
yeah.
me.
And so you either, if you're in a calm state, if you're, chill and cool and stuff, and then people get around you, then they will respond accordingly. But if you're in a chaotic state, people can't help but feel defensive or threatened, and they don't even know why.
Right.
It's because your body is knowing things before your brain ever connects the dots. And this is just the way that we are wired. This is that neurological state. And again, if we're not paying attention, we get around somebody and we start reacting accordingly. Is because now we're no longer being the thermostat, we're operating like the thermometer. We're measuring the level and then we become that level, higher, lower, hotter, colder, or we have such stability about who we are the thermostat and we set the tone for those around us. And so in that chapter you were talking about, chapter 29, I talk about, those different exercises that I mentioned before, whether that be, in the state of meditation or visualization, tapping, breath work, that is putting that energy into a certain realm. And sometimes you might have to just walk away. It's like, hey, I'm going to be right back. I got to take a walk for a second. And you go to a room or you go outside or you go someplace where you can reset your energy, reset your frequency so that you can come back in a regulated state. And I emphasize that because just because you do it once doesn't mean you never have to do it again. It is a daily exercise, a daily practice to stay in regulation. And this is the element of radical responsibility I talked about before, that you are responsible for your energy. You're responsible for what you bring to the table, what you bring into the room, what you bring into the conversation. And if you're not maintaining a regulated state, then you're being irresponsible with the gifts, skills, talents that you have. And so on one level, you need recognition. In that chapter, I think I gave a couple layers. Wasn't it
You do.
recognition?
Layer 1 is recognition, layer 2 is interruption, layer 3 is integration.
Right? And so those become the tiers. Is one is observing that these things are happening, whether it's from me or from somebody else. And then the interruption is like, I'm going to take a walk. Hey, can you give me a second? I'm going to respond in just a moment, but let me think this through before I open my mouth. Hey, can we revisit this tomorrow? Like, there are different things that you can do that in the moment you don't have to respond or react if you sense that you're not in a regular state or that they are not. And then the last thing is that integration, that's the piece where you have to do something to move the energy to get you back into state. Maybe that's, some jumping jacks, maybe it's some push-ups, there's a term in there I talk about where it says exhaust the body, tame the mind. Right? You want to get clarity in your mind, go do something with your body. It will actually change your state. Sometimes it's just laughing, going to a room where no one's going to hear you, laugh out loud. And I mean like hilarious laughter. You just force it and your body will follow along. Sometimes you need a good cry,
Sometimes. Listen, I'm
right?
not a crier, but every once in a while,
Mm-hmm.
I have to. You know what I'll do? I have cats, everybody knows that, and I'll pick up my biggest cat, he's a hashtag. Hamilton is an ass, because he is, and he's a 20-pound
Mm-hmm.
ginger, and we dance in the kitchen.
Love it.
All of a sudden, I feel better.
Yeah. And even that dancing is like another change of state. If you've ever been to, you know, Tony Robbins or you've seen, some of his stuff, you're like, whoa, that's crazy. What is that all about? And I remember I went to my first in-person event with Tony Robbins with a buddy of mine, and we were both a little skeptical and critical, and we were joking about it as we going up, like, oh yeah, just watch, we're gonna be the ones jumping up and down, waving our arms, blah blah
I bet
blah.
you were.
And before long, we looked at each other, we were like, "We're doing it!" And it was legit because when you change
It's
your
the
body, you
energy
change the energy
around you too.
100%.
Yeah, yeah.
And so if I take responsibility for my energy in the same way that we experience it in that environment with Tony Robbins, we can be the people that bring that kind of energy into a room. That's what creates different level teams, different levels of performance, different levels of outcomes, is the state of how these teams are led. And again, this is why this stuff is so critical. It's affecting so many layers within the company. When I talk to a leader who has difficulties delegating, on one level, you could be a control freak. on one level,
That
you
used to be
don't,
me.
right?
I was the person that said, "Just do what you're told, nobody gets hurt."
Yeah,
You can
yeah,
imagine how well that worked.
right. And then there's the other person who's like, "Hey, I'm just jumping in to help." And they're not actually coming to help. They're doing it because they want it done a certain way, their way. And you actually are removing the creativity and the contribution of the person that you're quote unquote helping. These are states that are not regulated because you're not operating from peace and trust. You're not operating from these higher levels of energy uh, and frequency that are found in a state that is regulated. You're operating from the scarcity, from the fear, and that's what's creating the wrong state. So again, when we look at all these different phases of where we're at, if we look at our daily practices or rituals or shared language that we have around the teams that we're building, suddenly we can all get into congruence. Hey, I want to have this conversation with you, but I am not in a good place right now. This is really important. We need to make this decision. This decision needs to be made by Tuesday. Can we make this decision today? I don't know. Let's you know put this on pause and let's come back tomorrow morning. Everybody come into the office ready to go in a good state. We all agreed on that? Yeah, let's do it. And these are the different things that you can create within a team where all of a sudden everybody knows where we stand. Everybody knows, the end game here is we're working together. And it's not to the degree where like, oh, we're all family, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm not talking that. I'm not talking about like kumbaya type of things. I'm saying, no, we're all operating as full grown ass adults being responsible for the energy we bring to the room. Suddenly we have
Exactly.
trust, authority. We're in this place of demanding of each other excellence because we demand excellence of ourselves first.
And, part of this same chapter, you say, "Raise my standards," and I'm going to read a couple of them. "I train my body daily through meditation, visualization, which I do, tapping, and breath work, which I definitely do. I redirect my stress energy into fuel for performance, not suppression." That's a tough one for a lot of people. "I
Mhm.
rehearse success mentally before I perform it physically." I do that. And I've done it for a long time, and I'll tell you who taught me that was a very dear friend of mine. He's passed away now, but his name was Jim Tunney. He was known as the dean of NFL referees. I worked with him for 10, 12 years, and he would tell me the most amazing stories about the athletes and the actors that he worked with. Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods imagines everything and he practices everything, and I thought, "I can do that." So I do, and guess what?
Mhm.
It works. And this is my favorite. I interrupt dysregulation the moment it activates and shift into strategic clarity. That's my
Mhm.
favorite. And the last one, still just as good as all of them. "I trust my body's wisdom because I've trained it to be trustworthy." Are you familiar with the Heart Math Institute?
Yeah, yeah.
Me
Mhm.
too. So I pay a lot of attention to what they have to say as well.
Mhm. And that stuff's all so congruent. And what you just read is in every chapter in the book. At the end of there's 40 chapters. At the end of every chapter, there is an exercise of raise my standards. And I put that specifically into the book so that you could actually experience what does it mean to have the affirmations. And then there's an identity piece, and then there's an action piece. That action is the embodiment, is actually doing something with the information. And so as you're going through the book, I'm not just revealing to you some perspective and some insights. I'm also providing you an opportunity to experience the material that you're studying. And this is closing that knowledge action gap. Is that if you go through this book, and I'm sure you experienced this, Denise, is, I kind of lean forward as the way that I wrote this, the tone is written from a perspective of I'm coaching you. I'm not going to be all flowery and kumbaya here. It's like, let's go. We're doing some business. We're getting some shit done. And that tone that I wrote in there is because I'm taking you somewhere as if we were actually in a coaching conversation. The book replaces you having to hire me. And if you will do what's in the book, you will experience transformation. You will experience a shift internally as to how you show up in the world. And that was very intentional.
And I like what you said too about page 282, when you rise we know this, but do we really know it?
Mhm.
Do we act
Yeah.
on it? Listen, this hour has not been enough time. There's so much more. I'm telling you, sticky notes are everywhere.
Mhm.
Can you come back?
Of course.
Okay, good. See, I
Happy
told you,
to.
you can't tell me no on
Mhm.
the radio. You wouldn't dare.
Yeah.
I will, get with you and get you rescheduled, but listen, everybody, you need to have this book because it's easy. It's an easy read. Yet it's a heavy book. There's a lot to it, but it is easy to read. And, I don't know about you, I cannot mark up a book. My childhood librarian would rear out of her grave and get me with a ruler, but I can
Mhm.
sticky note the heck out of them. So
Mhm.
anyway, before I reluctantly let you go, where can people find you? Where can they find your book? And if a listener only remembers one idea from this conversation, what would you like it to be?
Well, I'll start there. If you're going to remember one thing, remember that the only permission you need is your own. Full stop. If you want to find me online, Angus Nelson everywhere. And if you want to reach out to me directly, LinkedIn is the best place. And lastly, I would want to just tell you this. This book, you can buy it anywhere that you can buy books. Anywhere you want to buy books, you can get it. But if you've listened to this show so far, it is more important to me that you get this mission than it is you buy my book. And so as such, I want to give it to you for free. And if you go to freebook.vip, you can download the PDF version of this book. You can see it for yourself. You can experience it for yourself. And my hope is that you would not only just read it, but you would consume it and embody it. Because the world is desperate for people. It cannot afford your hesitation anymore. It cannot afford your procrastination. We're in a place right now where the market does not reward effort anymore. It only rewards regulation. And AI is going to continue to move faster. And if we can't stay calm in the chaos, we're actually going to lose. But your humanity, when it's properly regulated, becomes your most competitive advantage. So if you want the full framework of the C3 protocol, I talk about the Guardian. We didn't even get to that today. We didn't talk about the success trap. We didn't talk about all the different pieces of this book that are so relevant to leaders today. I put all of that in this book and you can have it all because it's my gift to you. And I'd rather you read it than just wonder about it. So go to freebook.vip and you can download that digital copy because confidence is not something that comes first. Confidence is something that lives in the past. For what's in front of you, it is not confidence that you need. What you need for this future is for you to be regulated and to believe in your abilities and capacities to stay that way. That's leadership stability in its highest form, and it's my hope for you. Thanks
Thank
so much,
you.
Denise.
And I'll make sure that that's in our show notes. Well, listen, everybody, in this conversation, my guest, Angus Nelson, he'll come back, shares how leaders can build more calm, clarity, and resilience under pressure. And we talked about, and we will talk again about why high achieving entrepreneurs and executives and human beings, all of us, often feel overwhelmed, and what it takes to lead with greater stability and how to make better decisions when the stakes are high. And as he just said, to connect with him and learn more about his work, visit his website at angusnelson.com and look for him on LinkedIn. That's, as he said, the best way to find him. I am Denise Griffitts. Thank you for being with us today, and I will see you each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Angus, thank you so much.
Thanks, Denise. My pleasure.